States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I know.
All members of the City Council are present except for Councilman Eskra and Kerr and Mayor Bob Morgan. The Opens Meeting Act is posted in the meeting room as accessible to members of the public. Item 2, the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be acted in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests. Item A, approve agenda as amended. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. D, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on December 4th, 2023, as on file in the city clerk's office. E, approval of the treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $220,958.33. Approval of Bazo report of claims amount of $66,580.45. G, approval of the write-off of ambulance bad debts. H, approval of pay request number 4 in the amount of $126,358.72 to Lamel Plumbing for the Gage County Industrial Park Sanitary Sewer Bypass Project, Phase 3, 2023, as recommended by the Board of Public Works. I, approval of pay request number 2 in the amount of $591,316.52 to Shones Roofing for the Beatrice Municipal Airport Roof Bids Project. J, resolution number 7190, executing the agreement for professional services retaining JEO to perform MS4 compliance assistance services and create an annual report for FY 2023 as recommended by the Board of Public Works. K, resolution number 7191, appointing members to the Firefighters Retirement Committee. L, resolution number 7192, appointing members to the Police Officers Retirement Committee. M, resolution number 7199, executing the grant agreement and any and all other documents with the Nebraska Emergency Agency to grant funds to the city for purposes of cyber security training pursuant to the state local cybersecurity grant program. Is there any item a council member would like removed from the? If not, Mr. Fairbanks.
I move that all items listed under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and or ratified as presented.
Second.
And your vote, please. As approved. 6-0. 6-0. Count up there. There are no public hearings tonight. We'll move to resolutions. Resolution number 7193, executing any and all documents necessary to accept the Nebraska Department of Economic Development Community Development Block Grant to aid the elimination of standard and blighted conditions within the downtown area as identified in the city's 2016 Downtown Revitalization Project Phase 1.
I move that resolution number 7193 be passed and adopted.
Second.
This is our downtown revitalization grant. This is the new one that we received for 2023, technically, so it'll get started here in 2024. It's another $400,000 for improvements in the downtown, and there's an additional $35,000 in there for grant administration and contract construction management. We'll probably be bringing a contract with Send at the next council meeting for them to administer this grant like they've done the current one. This particular grant, we had 29 pre-applications, eligible improvements. This time around, again, we're honoring, brick and masonry repairs and restorations, exterior wall repairs, facades, entryway window repairs, that kind of stuff. ADA compliance is always on there, life safety, so fire code, those types of items were eligible for this particular go-around. I assume we'll handle it like we've done in the past. We'll have a committee start looking through the pre-applications, getting some more information on those, and then ultimately bring them to this body for approval.
Do the people that were on the list prior that we couldn't fund, do they get preferential treatment, or is this all new ballgame?
We could do it either way. We have those other ones that we'll probably reach back out to them and say, are you still interested in doing your project that you had thrown out there? And if they are, throw them back in the hopper for this one. And some of them may say we're no longer interested and have moved on to something else.
Okay.
Any other comments, discussion?
Just a real quick question. So like this would go for improvements, like where we tore down the building, that one building next to it that had some, the wall is not in the best of shape, then they could apply for this type of grant to
Yes.
help and do that.
Yes, those types of work is generally what's acceptable. I'd have to get into see the details of it, but general answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Terry?
Roads, T?
I looked into that one. This one, when we wrote the grant this time, we talked about doing facades improvements. So I don't think we can go back and try to pick a road project at this point. The next go around, if we wanted to throw that out there as our project, you could, but I think at this point, since we've applied for facade improvements, I think that's what we have to continue with.
Anything else? If not, your vote, please. And that passes 6-0. Resolution B, number 7194, executing the sponsored agreement with Farmers Cooperative for Hannibal Park.
I move that resolution number 7194 be passed and adopted.
Second.
This is for another one of our sponsorship programs out at Hannibal Park, powered by Pinnacle Bank. This one you see is with Farmers Co-op. They have some signage that they are doing out at Hannibal Park. They'll pay $3,750 out. They'll pay that out over the next 3 years, is what this particular contract is for.
Any other discussion? If not, your vote, please. That passes 6-0. Resolution number 7195, executing the letter of agreement for professional services with Olsson Incorporated for the Ellis Street, 2nd Street to 3rd Street improvements.
I move that resolution 7195 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So we are looking at redoing Ellis Street from 2nd to 3rd. We have a $400,000 grant from the Department of Economic Development as part of our placemaking and a QCT, a qualified census tract. And we've kind of identified this particular block as one we want to look forward to. In preparing the design there, James Burrows would like to reach out to, in this case, Olson's, to help us with some of the design work, if you will, adding some of the beautification to it. He can draw nice straight lines, but he admits that sometimes it comes for the pretty things. He needs a little assistance. And so we would reach back out to Olson's because they've done a good job with the Court Street master plan that we got done earlier this year. You'll see in there, I think the contract is for $38,000. There is some design and QA/QC work, which is essentially them double checking James's math. He's got some stormwater stuff in there. He wants to make sure that they have somebody else kind of look over it, make sure he's got the right calculations in there. So that's part of this contract as well. Timing on it, Olson's is ready to proceed. And so they'll be waiting on James to get his preliminary design done, submit it to them so they can review it and get it back to us. And so, it's kind of the ball's on our court at this point to get things ready and get back up to them.
How soon do you think the project would actually start after it's bid and everything?
I think at this point, you're hoping for a bid in April, May, and then you're hoping for construction late fall.
Okay. Any other questions? Dwayne?
Is this going to be sort of a concept of what we might pursue for the rest of Ellis Street eventually? Or getting a little bit of an idea of how it's going to work, or?
Partially, yes. Obviously we want to add in some of that beautification detail that we saw on the Court Street master plan, knowing that we still have some limitations with that particular block, some of the driveway, some of that stuff. What can you add in there? Also, as you keep in mind that we want to ultimately, if everything proceeds the way council looks for, Ellis Street transitions into no longer have the truck traffic, probably no longer be in one way. How do you make sure you design those elements into it as well so it works not only today but in the future?
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, your vote, please. That passes 6-0. Resolution D, resolution number 7196, executing the service agreement with Merc Associates for the purpose of renewing the agreement with Mercantile McIntyre Associates for the renewal term.
I move that resolution 7196 be passed and adopted.
Second.
All right, Merchant McIntyre, if you guys all remember, we signed an initial contract with them for 3 months. And during that time period, we've had a number of conversations with them. They've talked to a number of our different department heads to see what's kind of on our radar screen for projects we want to see accomplished. They put together their matrix. They're funding federal funding targets. And so we've got that here in front of us. We'll go through a couple of those items. The next contract is before you is for the year of 2024. So it's a 12-month contract. It carries you through all of 24. Same dollar amount at $8,000 per month. We really kind of just run out of time. Our next council meeting's not till obviously January 2nd, and then we're trying to make sure we got them here. I know there's some people that like to see them come here. We'll see if we can get that lined up here in the early part of the next year. But that's kind of timeline where we're at with things. A couple of projects or a couple of different grants that they have identified and are kind of recommending that we look forward to. The first one is the RAISE grant. That's, again, a street project. We're looking at the downtown reroute project. That's one that we've identified. I've already had conversations with both Merck and McIntyre on this particular project and with Olsson's because we'll need to retain Olson's as well. We have to do a benefit cost analysis, a BCA, and we don't have the ability to draft that internally. We're going to have to have that externally. Olson's obviously very familiar with the project. They've done those types of analysis before, and so we'll probably have a contract coming with them here shortly to help us on that one. That particular grant application is due in February, and so we've already gotten kickstarted on getting that grant written and going there. A couple other ones, obviously they're going to work with our congressional delegation and see about some additional funding that way, so they'll work through those. They've got a couple here identified for both police and fire, both for some materials and for some gentlemen, for some additional officers on both of those, and so we'll look at those. There is a rural business development grant, which helps with some economic development ideas. They'll look through that one. Safe Streets for All is kind of the next big one on the list. We've got a contract coming here shortly for that planning grant, but the big money is with the implementation grant, which comes in about a year. So we're getting them on board to help us with that one. I had them review the scope of services for the planning grant to make sure we had everything in there that we need for the implementation grant. So they're helping us getting that lined up for funding in probably February 25 is when we look to apply there. Brownfield grants, they've got those identified. We're getting those ready to start moving forward. And like I said, then there's some safety grants out there for school resource officers and those types of things. So they've got a number of them identified, but obviously the big one we'll be fighting for first is the RAISE grant.
I'm not sure I need to really speak in favor of this because a number of us asked Tobias to go try to find a company that could do this for us, do this work for us. But and we all knew we were going to get to this point, 3 months ago when we hired them, and they've done what they said they're going to do. They're just not here, okay? But they're going to be here, we're assured, in the next month or so, right after the holidays. So we're investing another $96,000 into this, and Taylor can speak better than any of us to this. We get one grant, and it's going to pay that $96,000 or more back to us. So I think it's worth the risk for us to do this, and I'd appreciate if everybody voted for this.
I agree with him. Totally agree.
Mike?
Ted?
So, question is, when they're here, so the department heads, we're right in line and to be able to tell them what we want, and I understand that. My question is, did they give us this body our marching orders, what we can do to help? I mean, I jotted down a couple of notes here, like the congressional delegation. We had talked about over the last year and a half that a few of us had reached out to our congressional delegates and for different things, and so we're trying to streamline that. Are they going to be able to tell us what we should and shouldn't do as a body to help us get these grants?
Yeah, I would think so. We'll have that conversation with them. So far, they haven't asked anybody to do anything.
Okay.
It sounds like they carry all the water, if you will. But I think that they'll understand, too, that sometimes people have different relationships, and I think they'll look to lean on those if available.
Okay. Well, I guess that's really my question. I don't think that they probably understand what our relationships are with both our state and federal delegation,
Right.
and I certainly want them to carry all the water, but I want to be able to fill that bucket a little bit, so to speak, and I have that opportunity as well. So I look forward to the opportunity to speak with them.
Yeah.
Mike, that's a good point, Ted. And just today I stopped in and mentioned to Tobias there's some other things going on, a personal relationship with some of the congressional people. So I don't think that'll stop at all, because they're soliciting us rather than us soliciting them in those contexts. But it's important to keep those up. You're absolutely right.
Any other comments? If not, your vote, please. And that passes 6-0. Resolution E, resolution number 7197, executing the agreement for professional services retaining JEO to develop a citywide safety action plan.
I move that resolution 7197 be passed and adopted.
Second.
All right, so in 2022, we applied for the Safe Streets for All grant. There are two parts to a Safe Streets for All grant. There is a developing an action plan, and then there is an implementation plan. You cannot get an implementation plan unless you have an action plan. So hence, we applied for an action plan to start with. The federal government said the grant, the project shall be no less than $250,000. So that's how you get the number that's in here. This particular grant is for $200,000. So we are into it for $50,000 for our part of it. And in it, if you happen to read through that, you'll see it's analysis of our multimodal transportation alternatives and develop an action plan to reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries. So JEO is going to go out and look at traffic data. You'll see in there there's a number of public meetings, and so I think there's 2 public meetings, and then there's also focus groups. So certain areas of town, they'll meet with individuals there and work on putting together what they say are recommendations. Hopefully then some of those recommendations we can turn into an application a year from now. So we're looking at late 24, early 25 to apply for an implementation grant at the federal level.
Comments? Everybody's good? And your vote, please. That passes 6-0.
And you guys thought that'd be easy.
Just another 250 grand. Have them tell us the same thing.
Yep. But you gotta do it.
Resolution number 7198, entering into an interlocal cooperation act agreement between the city and the Village of Odell, Nebraska, whereby the city shall provide garbage collection services for the village.
I move that resolution 7198 be passed and adopted.
Second.
The Village of Odell went out for bids on their trash hauling, and we were submitted a bid, if you will, on their particular services there, and they've awarded their contract to the city of Beatrice. It's a 7-year contract. This was not a previous customer of ours. They were with a different vendor and decided to switch to us.
Do we have rural customers in that area yet?
We do have a few rural customers. With this contract coming out, we have more. The current carrier there has not only then lost Odell, but they have been dropping their rural customers in the area. And so they're calling us, and we're picking them up and adding more customers. We were already within about 2 miles of Odell beforehand with rural customers.
Okay.
And so this makes it a little stronghold for us down there to go pick up some additional customers.
When will the actual start date be?
Last week.
Last week. Very good. Dwayne?
I have a question. You know, I looked at this and seen what we're going to be charging them. My question is, you know, that after a year at that price, you know, we'll be able to quote reasonable. But I guess compared to what we pay here in Beatrice and compared to what they're going to be paying, you know, how long is reasonable raises until they're up to what, you know, what we would be paying?
I don't know how long it'll be till they'll be paying the same as in Beatrice. I think a couple of things to keep in mind is, one, this department is unlike any others. It is completely in the market, competing for customers. And so, again, was a bid. So if you want to get them, you have to come in at a price that's going to be competitive.
I understand that, but
So, you know, that's a little
how
different.
do you explain to the people?
Yep, I understand. You know, the other difference is the rural customers around there pay more than the city of Beatrice does. And so we pick up those customers, and then this helps us get into that area. And
Okay.
right. And so, you know, that provides us with additional revenue there. So, yeah, we'll continue to work on, like all the others, we raise them up, bump them up a little bit every year, and work to get them up to a rate that's closer to what we have here in town.
Gary?
But I said, in the short time that we've had Mars, though, the history is that when we pick up a small town, we pick up a lot more in between the small town and here than we usually even counted on.
Right, because you got to think as a hauler, you're not going to run down to go pick up one customer or 2 customers or 10 customers, right? You have to make it worth your time. And so usually you want to have the village and then have the rural customers around there. And again, this particular incident, the company did have it. When they lost the village, they no longer wanted to go down that area. It wasn't worth their time, and so they have moved off to someplace else.
I've talked to a few people from Odell, and they're pretty excited about having a dependable service.
Good. Any other comments? If not, your vote, please. That passes 6-0. There are no ordinances tonight. We'll move to the public forum. The purpose of the public forum is a presentation of an item by the general public for the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council this time. Anybody here for the public forum? Seeing none, we'll move to discussions and reports. Tonight we'll do council committee updates. Start with Terry in the downtown committee.
Okay, guys. So the new members on this council have been here about a year right now, give or take. And I'm not going to take much time here. I just wanted to thank Dwayne, all the administration, Michael. I wish Bob was here so I could thank him for his leadership. Just the people that are on that downtown committee that are from this council and the mayor, and then the people from the outside that we draw on. We've asked Gary to come in a couple of times when we needed his expertise. So please thank you for the time that you gave to that downtown committee. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I just think it's important for the public to know that a lot of work goes into not just the downtown, but businesses in this community. I mean, we have Engage working on it, we have Main Street working on it, we have the city administration working on it every single day. We have our downtown committee that you guys sit on with me, and a lot of work goes into doing what we can to keep these buildings going downtown, keep them up, keep businesses there, trying to get them to improve those buildings whenever we can, or sell them to somebody else that will improve those buildings. And it's important that everybody knows that a lot of work goes into that and a lot of time is spent. You know, that's maybe it. Just thank you for the time that you guys have spent on that. Thank you for approving that agreement that we did tonight with the engineering firm. I originally asked for that from our committee because I just think it's important that we try to make whatever additional mistakes, hopefully we don't, but if we do, we make them down here on 2nd and 3rd rather than 6th and Court. Okay, so we're going to try a lot of different things with bump outs and landscaping and trees and all kinds of things down there just to see what works and what people like and what they don't like. So I appreciate you approving that agreement. And $38,000 is probably worthwhile putting into that so we can try to minimize those mistakes. So thank you, Acting Mayor, for giving me a moment.
All right, thank you, Terry. Dempster's committee with Ted.
Well, Bob's not here, and I guess I need to echo a little bit about Terry, and I should have thanked Bob before when I gave these reports. I'm just glad he put this committee together. And as everybody knows, we're kind of in a holding pattern on this. This is a 17-acre site, and we don't own all of it. We are going to get a little bit more of it in May of '24, but we won't own all of it until the fall of '25. And in the fall of '25, that's when things really should start happening. That being said, we did get one building down this year. Talked to Tobias about this and Chet was working on it up until the time he took a little respite here. So Chet, when he gets back to full speed, we're talking about taking down the wood structure that you're all aware of that's on the west end of the property. It's kind of low-hanging fruit and probably the least expensive thing, but I want to our committee wants to keep eating this elephant one bite at a time. But for the council, I want you to keep in mind, one of the things that we're going to have to get this down is grants. Everybody's well aware of that. And reading the grants that I have that for the communities that have been awarded them, they need a solid plan. And part of the plan is they need a starting point and need an ending point, and the ending point is really important. And that ending point is what to do with the site. So Terry and Gary and I, we're now all on the same page. We all have the same materials. We plan to meet sometime in January of next year and start to formalize a final draft of what this site will look like when the buildings are all gone. Hopefully we'll present that to the full council before spring is over in '24. We'll adopt that as a council, so that will go into the grant application process. So although we can't actually take anything down other than the one building, at least we're getting all the groundwork done for the grant application process when we get there. So that's what I got.
Very good, Tim. Be nice when that's gone.
Yep.
Yeah, it will. Yep.
Gary with the ordinance committee.
Well, when I started this project, Tobias and Bob kind of warned me what I was asking for, and I filled that out, what we'd like to see accomplished. But I'm not surprised, and I don't think the previous councils attacked this very much. I guess you'd call it attacking it. But there's a lot of things to go through, and it don't seem like we're making progress. But Tim, you'd probably agree. I think we've made some pretty good gains, and you can't bring them all up at once. But we're picking off some of the ones that might seem a little bit easier than some that we're going to get into. We're going to talk about all our sign ordinances. I think you said there's 26 pages of sign ordinances. We're going to try to condense that down. But the ones we've worked on and the ones we've got coming up, common theme is a lot of the public thinks we ain't making enough progress. And the other ones are, you probably ought to slow down. If we've seen here many times, we catch it one way or the other, and that's okay. But I think we've made good progress on what we try to do. And the word compromise always has to be used because not all of us think alike, and the public sometimes don't think like we do, or sometimes they have some better suggestions. So I think we'll keep progressing like we are and hope it turns out.
Yeah, very good.
Michael,
Yes.
when you start thanking people. So Chet and James need to be thanked from this committee a lot because they are, foundation members of this committee. And next time I walk in their office, they're going to tell me to get my butt out of there if I don't thank them. So I thank you two guys very much for all the work you did. Okay.
We'll move on to the city administrator's monthly report.
So kind of sticking with the theme of things to look for in 2024, a couple of highlights I have in there. The landfill, we met with the engineers the other day. We're looking to probably go out for bid in July time period of 2024 with construction starting that September, October time frame. What you'll see is a lot of the operations move from the north side of the road over to the south side of the road as the new landfill gets built over there. So you see the scales get moved over. Some additional buildings go up to store machinery in rather than run it back and forth across the road. So that'll be something big that happens in 2024. The trail out to the homestead, right now we're scheduled in January of 24 to have an on-site visit. I don't know who schedules on-site visits in January, but we're going to have one. So if anybody wants to come out and walk 3 miles outside with me in mid-January, let me know. I may have to dress a little warmer that day. Not knowing for being able to stand the cold very well. So, but we are moving forward with that one. The big news there is, as we talked about before, the state was going to replace the bridges already on the way out to the homestead. We had a conversation. We said, well, when you're doing that, can you just attach the trail to the bridge rather than having your bridge and the trail bridge 10 feet apart from one another? And people ask us, why do you have 6 bridges? And the state has looked at it and said, yes, that's feasible. And so that will adjust some of the alignment. And so that's why I don't have a updated plan for anybody to look at yet as they kind of work through that one. And then the drainage studies, we're getting those going. We've got a firm picked out. I have negotiated a scope of service with them. They're supposed to get me back a contract, and hopefully that comes back to you in January. And so we'll get them started, and that'll be both for Belvedere and for Tributary 44. Look to see what we can do to make some improvements in both of those areas.
So those are long awaited.
Yeah.
I have a question on the trail. Are the people along the trail that have property, are they going to be notified when we do this?
Yes, obviously they'll be notified. At this point, though, the design I have is quite honestly a Google map with a line drawn on it. I don't have enough details to bring in and tell somebody if it's 10 feet on your property, 10 feet off your property. But yes, they'll be involved and we'll have those communications.
Yeah, because I've been contacted by 2 of the homeowners out there that have some concerns, and I think, it would be good, to be able to address that at that time and, help, say, here's what's happening, so they, are.
Right. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Tobias? If not, our next city council meeting Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. in this room. With that, we'll move into executive session to contract negotiations. Mr. Fairbanks?
I move that Beatrice City Council go into closed session at 7:30 PM for the protection of the public interest to discuss contract negotiations.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Your vote, please. That passes 6-0.